Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Bad Iron Podcast. Today is Friday, October the 18th. We're set up for another great weekend of football, baseball, college basketball is starting, the NBA, hockey. Isn't this the best time of the year for anybody who's a sports fan? You got them all for the next several weeks. Amazing baseball games, amazing football games, college NFL, Major League Baseball, hockey if you like it. Let's do it all. Why not? It's the fall. I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee, and it's beautiful outside. So this is going to be quick because I want to go back outside and experience this beautiful weather that we're having here in the fall. Been off for a couple weeks. Took a little break. Rebooting now. My buddy Fonte, I think he's given up on me. He's traveling again today. He's not going to be with me, so we're not going to have any stories, but we should be loaded up with stories if I can ever get him back on the podcast with me. Most of you probably listening know me. We're just doing this to be nice to me, so I appreciate that. But I'm just going to make this one quick tonight. My Kentucky Wildcats took a heartbreaker last week to Vandy. If I would have been on this podcast, I would have definitely told you to, if you wanted to, bet on Vandy, because I don't know how Kentucky was a 14-point favorite in that game, and it proved to be false by the Vegas odds makers. So it definitely pays in gambling to stick to what you know, and I definitely know my team very well, whether it comes to football or basketball. And I stick to the teams in general. I stick to the teams that I do know well, and teams that I know their coaches' trends, or the trends of those particular teams in their conferences. Of course, we've having a lot of conference shakeups lately, so that's affecting a lot that's happening out in Vegas too. So I think been a good 3 weeks in a row. I feel good about this week. That's why I'm doing this podcast right now. I also feel good about the NFL. So I'll have some of those coming up later, and a few stories to go along with my next podcast. But this one's going to be a quick one. We're just going to run down some of the games. One of them's tonight, or two of them are tonight, Friday, October 18th. You may not get to these. If you watched any football last week and you didn't watch Oregon, Ohio State, then you're not a real football fan. That was an incredible game to watch. I've actually watched it twice because it was just so intriguing, all of the different things that went on both sides of the field. Coaching moves, incredible plays by these amazing athletes. And so Oregon now looking very good for the playoff coming up at the end of the year, although they still have some tough games on their schedule. One of them is not tonight. They play at Purdue tonight. But one of the things I like to do is to take a team that's come off a big emotional win on a short week, playing on a Friday night, going across 2 time zones to Purdue. And let me tell you, Purdue at 1-5, they are terrible. Oregon, in my opinion, is really, really good. I don't know if they can win the national championship, but they're very good. And my wife is an Oregon fan. I'm an Oregon fan. I've actually got an Oregon flag that I'll be flying, but it's a 31-point spread. And I think Oregon wins this game, but I don't think they win it by more than 31, even though they are more than 31 points better. This is one of those emotional college situational type of games. Purdue's not going to care, but I don't think Oregon's going to care either. They are going to probably win by 3 touchdowns, 42-21, something like that. But I'm taking Purdue in the 31 points, just because I think there's a little bit of a letdown coming from Oregon. Ohio State, I think, gets lucky and gets a bye, so they don't have to worry about that. But they're going to be fired up when they come back in their next game. The other game tonight's BYU versus Oklahoma State, and I've hit BYU is one of the teams that's hit the spread every week. They've covered the spread every week. Nobody anticipated them to be ranked in the top 15, let alone the top 10. They definitely have playoff chances, and I think they are much better than everybody thought at the beginning of the year. They're at home at night on a Friday night. The Mormons are going to do it against Oklahoma State and the Cowboys. They're -9. I think they win by at least 2 touchdowns. BYU -9 versus Oklahoma State tonight. Give me the Mormons on that particular pick. Then we'll go on to tomorrow. There's another great day of games tomorrow. And one of the early games is Louisville hosting Miami. And Miami obviously has a Heisman candidate winner. They've pulled out some squeakers. They've made some amazing comebacks. If this was a night game, I would think Louisville would win this game, and they still may win this game. I don't like Louisville. I am a Kentucky fan. But Jeff Brom is good for some reason about scheming against top five, top 10 teams. He did it when he was at Purdue. He's done it at Louisville. And they pull off a surprise every year, it seems like. They haven't yet this year. So I think this is the one. I'm getting 6 points right now with Louisville as a home dog. If I can get it to 7, I'm definitely going to take it. I think a money line might be in place here. I think Louisville gets the upset over Miami. I think Miami's a little overrated. Yes, they have a great quarterback, but I think Louisville, even though they have not looked great in recent weeks, these are the kind of games where Jeff Brom gets his teams prepared. Let's go with Louisville in this game. My team, Kentucky. Oh, so bad. Uh, Beat Ole Miss on the road as a top 6 team. Come home and lose to Vandy at home on homecoming is just an embarrassment. And that's just the way it is with Kentucky. So Kentucky goes to Florida this week, and Kentucky somehow is favored. I am not going to touch the line in this game because I don't know what to expect of either one of these teams. But I do like the under 43. Both teams are very defensive oriented, like to control the clock. Um, I think there'll be a lot of field goals in this game. I see this being 20-16, something like that. But I don't know who wins, but I think under 43 is the way to go in this game. Nobody's getting to 24 points in this game unless there's a lot of defensive touchdowns or turnovers, which could happen. It's football. But these teams are going to try to play it close to the vest and squeak out a grinder at the end. It's going to be a slobber knocker. So give me the under 43 in Kentucky versus Florida. One team that a good friend of mine, a relative of mine, Scott Schulte, who used to play in the NFL as a running back. I just should have known he was a running back. He's always been a running back. Is loving Indiana this year, and Indiana is undefeated. Nobody's talking about Indiana. But they have Kurt Signetti, I think that's how you pronounce his name, who has won everywhere he's gone. He has quite the mojo. If you can win at James Madison the way he did, then you can win anywhere. But if you can win at Indiana, then that's really saying something. It's like saying if you go to Kentucky and you can win at Kentucky. And so far, that offense has been amazing to watch in Indiana. I've gone back and watched some YouTube videos watching them. They play Nebraska at home. Everybody loves Nebraska this year. Why do we all of a sudden love Nebraska? Yeah, they're okay. They got a good defense. I don't think they can keep up with Indiana's offense. Indiana -6 against Nebraska. Give me Indiana. They have a legitimate playoff opportunity. If they can finish this one off against Nebraska, their schedule is not that bad. They have to play, I think, 2 top 10 teams coming down. But if they can get one of those, and I do believe they get one of them at home, actually, it's not 2 top 10 teams, it's just 2 top 20 teams. If they can get one of those wins at home and just end up the season with one loss, they have a chance of squeaking in the playoffs. So they're going to be fired up for this game. Indiana -6. Nebraska can't keep up. Missouri at home against Auburn. I don't know. This one scares me because the spreads is only 4 and it's at Missouri, and Auburn has looked terrible. So whenever I see a spread that doesn't look like it's supposed to be, I usually go the other way. But I'm not going to recommend that on this one. Missouri's kind of looked meh so far with when they had such high expectations. And I think that's a little bit of the reason why. One of those games was against Vanderbilt, where they went to overtime at home. And everybody thought, oh, they can't be that good if they went to overtime against Vanderbilt, that Vanderbilt beat Alabama and then beat Kentucky on the road. Vanderbilt's not the Vanderbilt we knew 5 years ago, 1 year ago. So I don't think that win looks that bad anymore. I like Missouri covering the 4 points at home against Auburn. I just don't think Auburn can score enough points, especially on the road. Missouri does not have much of a home field advantage. Actually, that home field is terrible. Going to that, I would never go to a game there unless you paid me. Sorry, Missouri Tiger fans, but that stadium's just awful. But regardless, I think Missouri is a touchdown better than Auburn on a neutral field. So give me Missouri -4. It's gone up from 3. If I come back on here after Missouri loses this game, then I will say, yes, Vegas is smarter than all of us, which actually they are. But this line looks very weird to me. The next one is another SEC game, a newcomer to the SEC, Oklahoma, who hasn't been able to score this year, playing at home against South Carolina, and South Carolina is favored by a point. Everybody's giving a lot of credence to South Carolina's almost win against Alabama last week. Yeah, it's a good game. Great job. Alabama's not the Alabama of the Saban years, and Alabama was looking ahead to Tennessee. So they did not put their best effort in the last 2 weeks, South Carolina. So there's a little bit of an overreaction. Oklahoma got destroyed by Texas, who's quite amazing. And South Carolina played Alabama close. That's why they're favored. This is at Oklahoma. Oklahoma needs an SEC win in the worst way. Oklahoma wins this game over South Carolina in a getting a point at home. I'll take the money line. Speaking of Tennessee, Alabama, one of the biggest games of the weekend. Tennessee, Alabama. We got Georgia, Texas coming up here in a minute. Tennessee is at home against Alabama and getting 3 points. Um, give me Tennessee. Give me Tennessee to perhaps win, but definitely cover 3 or 3.5 points at home. Tennessee is a much different team when they play in the white and orange checkerboards of Knoxville. Both of these teams last week had rough games. Tennessee, Alabama is one that is a huge rival that you necessarily wouldn't think of, but Tennessee definitely looks at this as a big rival. Alabama, not so much, but Tennessee has gotten them recently a couple of times. And both teams have not looked good in the past weeks. Tennessee has a bye the following week, and that's another advantage, in my opinion, to back Tennessee here. Not just the being at home. Tennessee's got a much better defense than they have in the past. Alabama has pretty much not much defense on their side of the ball. So I'm looking at Tennessee here, not only just to cover the spread for sure, but maybe to pull this win out. It won't be as big of a win as they had a couple of years ago, when they won 52-49 or whatever it was. But I do think Tennessee is going to maybe not the better team, but the better team on this day and in Knoxville. And that's going to put Alabama in a little bit of a pickle getting to the playoff because losing to Vanderbilt and then taking a second loss. Tennessee can't take a second loss either after their loss to Arkansas. So both of these teams are kind of in a must-win situation. I like Tennessee. I don't like Tennessee, but I like Tennessee in this game to cover against Alabama. Let's flip over to the Big Ten for a minute, which has gotten a lot better this year. And one of the teams that has really improved is Illinois, and they are facing Michigan at home. This is Illinois' Super Bowl this year. They got Michigan at home. Michigan is clearly beatable. Illinois has played a really good schedule and has taken care of business and had a tough game at Penn State, but who doesn't? So Illinois, in my opinion, is getting four at home. They're going to cover that spread. It's going to be a close, low-scoring game, in my opinion. Both of these teams rely on the running game and on defense. It's going to be a close, low-scoring game. And then you have Michigan, who's just not the same Michigan. Even the games they've won, they've mostly squeaked by, except maybe against Arkansas State, who doesn't really count. So, this game being a 4-point spread in Michigan's favor is about the name on the jersey to me. But if you take the names off the jerseys and look at their resumes and watch the talent on both of these teams, Illinois at home in their Super Bowl this year could knock Michigan out, and I think they will. Illinois +4 against Michigan at home in Champaign, I think it is Champaign, Illinois. I've never been there. Another weird game. We'll go back to the SEC for the last two here. Mississippi State is playing Texas A&M at home. Texas A&M is a team that is very hard to predict and has been for a while, but is really hard to predict this year. The same with Mississippi State, who just basically stunk in the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, but have looked a lot better the last couple of weeks. Played Georgia pretty well, which is, I don't know if that's saying a lot this year, but they did play Georgia pretty well. And A&M is a 21-point favorite at Mississippi State with the Cowbells. And A&M has LSU next week. So they may be looking ahead a little bit to that LSU rivalry coming up next week. I don't love this one, but something tells me Mississippi State can keep it within 3 touchdowns. So we'll take Mississippi State plus 21 points at home against Texas A&M. The last one is the biggest one, maybe the biggest game of the year. Georgia at Texas. Everybody's been talking about this game since the beginning of the year. Alabama kind of spoiled it a little bit by beating Georgia in a game at Tuscaloosa. but Georgia comes in kind of reeling a little bit in that they're not winning their games convincingly. They barely beat my Kentucky Wildcats 13-12. Like I said, they struggled with Mississippi State last week at home, but they're still very talented. Texas, who knows how good they are. If Texas wins this game, they probably have a ticket to the number 1 seed, and Georgia is going to have to fight just to get in the playoffs. So this is a desperation game for Georgia, not for Texas. Texas can win this game, can lose this game, still get a top 4 seed. Now they're not thinking about that. Texas is thinking about, hey, we're Texas. The SEC thinks they're our big brother, so we're going to fight this one out. So this game is going to be must watch. If you don't watch this game, you're not a college football fan. It's going to be must watch. Texas is a 4.5-point favorite to Georgia. Anytime I can get Kirby Smart and 4.5 points, I'm doing it. Anytime. If Texas covers it, then Texas may be one of the best teams in the last 20 years. But give me Georgia plus 4.5 going to Austin. It may be 34-31, but I think Georgia is going to sneak up and play their best game of the year in this particular game. So if that happens, Texas is going to have to play one of their best games, if not their best game. So there you have it. That's my picks. Hopefully you enjoy them. Hopefully you take them to heart if you want. Have fun with them. That's all I'm going to do. Watch the games. Enjoy all the games. And we will talk to you next time for the Bad Iron Podcast. Signing over.